The air in Luxe Bistro was a heady cocktail of truffle oil, expensive perfume, and unspoken power plays. Nestled in the heart of Beverly Hills, the restaurant was a shrine to wealth. Its crystal chandeliers casting golden prisms across tables draped in white silk, each set with bone china and sterling silver that gleamed like a promise. Servers glided through the dining room like shadows, their black uniforms crisp, their smiles a carefully honed armor against the whims of Hollywood stars, tech moguls, and real estate tycoons. It was a Friday night in October 2023, and the room thrummed with the low hum of influence, the clink of wine glasses, the murmur of deals being struck, the occasional burst of laughter from a table of VIPs asserting their dominance. Maya Tourist moved through the chaos with the grace of someone who'd learned to navigate storms. Her dark hair was pulled into a high ponytail, swinging with each purposeful step, and her brown eyes, sharp and observant, scanned the room as she balanced a tray of martinis for a table of producers. Raised in East Los Angeles by a single mother who cleaned houses for the very elite Maya now served, she'd fought her way through community college and into UCLA's communications program, juggling student loans and a part-time job at Luxe Bistro to keep her dreams afloat. The work was grueling, 10-hour shifts on her feet, customers who saw her as furniture, and the constant need to smile through exhaustion. But it paid the bills, and Maya was nothing if not resilient. Her mother's mantra echoed in her mind, "Trabaja duro, mija. Nadie puede quitarte tu dignidad." Work hard, my girl. No one can take your dignity. Tonight, though, her dignity was under siege. Table 12, a prime spot by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Rodeo Drive's glittering storefronts, was occupied by Charles Wentworth, a 60-year-old real estate magnate whose presence commanded attention. His Patek Philippe watch glinted like a small sun on his wrist, its diamonds catching the chandelier's light. His Bentley was parked out front, a sleek black beast that screamed money louder than words ever could. Wentworth sat with three friends: John Maxwell, a hedge fund manager with a perpetual smirk; Richard Klein, a venture capitalist with a taste for bourbon; and Claire Duval, a boutique owner whose sharp tongue was as famous as her designer handbags. The quartet exuded the effortless confidence of the ultra-wealthy, their laughter a performance for the room. Maya had barely set their cocktails down when Wentworth's complaints began. He'd snapped his fingers, a gesture that made her skin crawl, demanding faster service, though she'd delivered their drinks in under 5 minutes. "This place is supposed to be top tier," he'd said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "You'd think they'd hire people who can keep up." His friends chuckled, and Maya forced a smile, her pulse quickening but her voice steady. "My apologies, sir. I'll ensure everything meets your expectations." Now, as she approached table 12 with their entrees, her heart sank. Wentworth's gray eyes, cold and calculating, locked onto her as she set down a plate of black cod with caviar sauce, its aroma rich and delicate, a $120 dish crafted by a Michelin-trained chef. "Your entree, sir," she said, her tone polished, her smile a shield. "Please let me know if there's anything else you need." Wentworth barely glanced at the plate before pushing it away with a manicured finger, his lips curling into a sneer. "This won't do," he said, his voice carrying across the dining room like a stage actor's. "It's not up to standard, clearly not fresh. Take it back, girl." Maya's smile didn't waver, though her stomach twisted. She'd served this dish dozens of times, and the cod was flown in from Japan that morning, a fact the chef had boasted about. "I'm sorry to hear that, sir," she said, keeping her tone even. "The cod was prepared exactly to your specifications, sourced fresh today. Would you like me to have the chef confirm, or shall I bring a replacement?" Wentworth's sneer widened, and he turned to his friends, who leaned in, eager for the show. "Listen to this," he said, chuckling, his watch glinting as he gestured. "This girl probably hasn't seen a decent meal in her life, so she wouldn't know how to serve one properly." John and Richard burst into laughter, their guffaws sharp and rehearsed, a chorus of sycophants. Claire raised an eyebrow, her fingers tracing the stem of her wineglass, but she said nothing, her expression unreadable. Maya's cheeks burned, the sting of his words sharper than she'd expected. She'd heard worse, customers who called her honey or snapped at her for imagined slights. But Wentworth's cruelty was deliberate, a performance designed to humiliate. "I'll bring a new dish right away, sir," she said, reaching for the plate, her hands steady despite the anger simmering inside. Wentworth waved a hand, cutting her off. "Don't argue with the people paying you, sweetheart," he said, his voice booming, drawing eyes from nearby tables. "Just do your job." The word sweetheart landed like a slap, patronizing and calculated. His friends laughed again, John slapping the table, Richard shaking his head as if Maya's existence was a personal affront. Claire's smile was tight, her eyes flickering with something. Discomfort, perhaps, but she remained silent. Maya nodded, retreating to the kitchen with the plate, her heart pounding like a drum. The dining room felt smaller, the gazes of other patrons like pinpricks on her skin. She knew this game, rich customers flexing their power, using servers as punching bags to boost their egos, but Wentworth's cruelty was surgical, designed to strip her of dignity. In the kitchen, she handed the plate to Chef Marco, who muttered, "This is perfect cod, fresh as it gets. What's his problem?" Maya shook her head, unable to speak, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. She took a deep breath, smoothing her apron, and returned to the dining room. Wentworth's table was waiting, their laughter a grating soundtrack to her approach. She delivered the new cod dish, her movements precise, her smile a mask. "Here you are, sir," she said. "Please let me know if this meets your standards." Wentworth barely glanced at it, waving her away. "Let's hope this one doesn't taste like it came from a can," he said, his friends chuckling. Maya turned away, her jaw clenched, the spark of anger inside her growing into a flame. She wouldn't let this man break her, but she wasn't sure how much more she could take. The night wore on, and Wentworth's behavior grew more brazen. He called Maya sweetheart or girl, with every request, each word dripping with disdain, as if her name wasn't worth learning. He complained about the temperature of his wine, the speed of the service, even the way Maya poured water, as if her every move was an insult to his refined sensibilities. At one point, he accidentally knocked a glass of Pinot Noir onto the tablecloth, the red stain spreading like a wound. "Clean it up, sweetheart," he said, leaning back with a grin, his watch catching the light. "Don't keep us waiting." Maya knelt to dab the stain, her hands steady but her jaw tight, the fabric soaking up the wine like a sponge. Wentworth's friends chuckled, egging him on. "You'd think they'd train them better," Richard said, swirling his bourbon. John nodded, adding, "It's Beverly Hills, not some diner in the valley." Claire, though, remained silent, her gaze fixed on Maya, a flicker of discomfort crossing her face, her fingers pausing on her glass. In the kitchen, Maya vented to Leland Nguyen, the restaurant's manager, a 35-year-old woman with a no-nonsense demeanor and eyes that missed nothing. "He's unbearable," Maya said, slamming her tray onto the counter, her voice low but trembling. "He's treating me like I'm nothing, Lila, like I'm not even human." Lila sighed, adjusting her tailored blazer, her expression a mix of sympathy and pragmatism. "I saw Maya. Wentworth's a regular, and he's always a jerk, but his checks keep the lights on. Just keep your head down. You're one of my best. Don't let him get to you." Maya nodded, but the words felt hollow, like a bandage on a gaping wound. She returned to the table, delivering a round of desserts, chocolate soufflés and lemon tarts adorned with edible gold leaf. Her movements mechanical, her smile a fragile facade. Wentworth grudgingly accepted the cod replacement, though not without a final jab. "About time you got something right, sweetheart." His friends laughed, but Claire's smile was gone, her eyes darting away, as if she couldn't bear to watch. The breaking point came at the end of the night. The bill for table 12 was $820, a sum that could cover Maya's rent and then some. Wentworth paid with a platinum credit card, his signature a flourish of entitlement, his friends already pulling on their coats. When Maya checked the receipt, her stomach plummeted. The tip line was blank. $0. As Wentworth stood to leave, he leaned in, his cologne sharp and overpowering, his voice low but audible to his friends. You should be grateful you got to serve us, sweetheart, he said, his smirk ablade. Not everyone gets the chance to be in our presence. He walked out, his Bentley roaring to life outside, its headlights slicing through the night. John and Richard followed, their laughter echoing. Claire lingered for a moment, her lips parting as if to say something, but she shook her head and hurried after them, her heels clicking on the marble floor. Maya stood frozen, the receipt crumpling in her hand, the dining room now half empty, its opulence a mocking contrast to her humiliation. The other servers, Carlos, the bartender with a quick grin, and Sophie, a fellow waitress with a knack for gossip, rallied around her, muttering curses about Wentworth. "He's a pig," Sophie said, squeezing Maya's shoulder. "You didn't deserve that." But their sympathy couldn't erase the sting. Maya felt small, invisible, reduced to a prop in Wentworth's performance of power. The dining room, with its gilded mirrors and velvet chairs, felt like a stage where she'd been publicly dismantled. She slipped into the break room, sinking onto a plastic chair, the receipt still clutched in her fist. Her mother's words, "Nadie puede quitarte tu dignidad," rang in her ears, but tonight they felt like a lie. Wentworth had taken something from her, and she didn't know how to get it back. Lila found her, leaning against the doorway, her arms crossed. "I'm sorry, Maya," she said, her voice softer than usual, a rare crack in her professional armor. "He's a bully, but he's not worth your tears. People like Wentworth always get what's coming to them. Trust me on that." Maya looked up, her eyes glassy but dry. "I'm not crying," she said, her voice steady despite the ache in her chest. "I'm just tired of being treated like I'm less than human because I pour their wine or clean their messes." Lila nodded, her expression unreadable, a glint of something. Resolve, perhaps, in her dark eyes. "Hang in there, kid. You're stronger than you know. And this isn't over." Maya didn't believe her, not then. But as she clocked out and stepped into the cool night air, the receipt still crumpled in her pocket, she felt a resolve hardening inside her. Wentworth thought he'd won, that his money and status made him untouchable. But Maya wasn't done. Not yet. A week later, Maya was back at Luxe Bistro, her black uniform pressed, her ponytail sleek, her smile back in place like a well-worn mask. She'd spent the intervening days replaying the night with Wentworth, each insult a fresh wound that refused to heal. She'd even posted about it on Reddit under the username Server Life Sucks, venting to a faceless community about the Patek Philippe jerk, who'd stiffed her on an $820 bill and treated her like dirt. The responses, hundreds of them flooding her inbox, were a mix of outrage and empathy. Stories of similar humiliations from servers, baristas, and valets across the country. "Rich people like that are the worst," one user wrote. "Keep your head up. You're worth more than their money." Another sent a virtual hug. "I've been there. Don't let them break you." The outpouring helped, a reminder that she wasn't alone, but it didn't erase the memory of Wentworth's smirk, his voice dripping with disdain. Tonight, table 12 was booked again, and Maya's heart sank when she saw the reservation. Charles Wentworth, party of 5. He'd returned with his usual trio, John Maxwell, Richard Klein, and Claire Duval, plus a new face, a stern-looking man in a tailored gray suit introduced as Mr. Kessler, a potential partner for a multi-million-dollar real estate deal that could cement Wentworth's legacy. Lila assigned Maya to the table, her eyes glinting with something Maya couldn't place, a mix of encouragement and calculation. "You've got this," Lila said, her tone firm, almost conspiratorial. "Just do what you do best, Maya." Maya nodded, steeling herself, her fingers brushing the edge of her apron as if to ground herself. She approached the table, her tray steady, her voice calm, polished from years of practice. "Good evening, Mr. Wentworth. Welcome back to Luxe Bistro. May I start you with drinks?" Wentworth barely looked up, his attention fixed on Kessler, who was flipping through a leather-bound portfolio. "Same as last time, sweetheart," Wentworth said, waving a hand dismissively, his watch catching the light. "And don't dawdle. We're on a schedule." His friends chuckled, though Claire's laugh was half-hearted, her eyes flicking to Maya with a trace of guilt, a shadow of the discomfort she'd shown last week. Maya nodded, jotting down the order. 2 scotches, a bourbon, a martini, and Kessler's sparkling water, her movements precise, her smile a shield. She'd learned from last time. Wentworth thrived on reactions, on seeing his targets flinch, so she gave him nothing. But inside, she was seething, her mind racing for a way to turn the tables, to reclaim the dignity he'd tried to strip away. She didn't know it yet, but the universe was already conspiring to do just that, setting the stage for a reckoning that would shake Wentworth's world to its core. The night unfolded like a grim replay of the last, a script Maya knew too well. Wentworth complained about everything. The oysters weren't cold enough, the steak was overcooked, the service was sluggish despite Maya's flawless efficiency. He leaned into his role as the table's alpha, each barb aimed at Maya sharper than the last, his voice carrying across the dining room like a performer commanding the stage. "You'd think they'd hire people with some class in a place like this," he said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear, his gray eyes glinting with malicious amusement. "This girl's barely keeping up." John and Richard nodded, their laughter a rehearsed chorus, but Claire's expression soured, her fingers tightening around her fork, her silence a growing storm. Maya kept her cool, her movements precise, her responses polite. Each "yes, sir," and right away, a defiance wrapped in professionalism. She decided to play the long game, to let Wentworth's arrogance build, trusting that his own hubris would be his undoing. But the weight of his words pressed down on her, each "sweetheart" a reminder of the night he'd left her with nothing but a crumpled receipt and a bruised spirit. She caught Lila's eye across the room, the manager's nod a silent reassurance, but Maya couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking a tightrope, one misstep away from falling. The first twist came during the main course, when Wentworth's arrogance pushed too far, cracking the facade of his carefully curated circle. He'd ordered a rack of lamb, only to send it back, claiming it was tough as leather, despite the chef's insistence that it was perfect. Maya offered to replace it, her voice calm, her hands steady. "I'll have a new dish out shortly, sir," she said, reaching for the plate. Wentworth cut her off, his voice rising, a theatrical performance for his audience. "This is pathetic," he said, turning to Kessler, who was watching with a neutral expression. "This girl's too slow to even get a simple order right. No wonder the service here is a joke. You'd think for these prices, they'd find someone competent." The dining room hushed, nearby patrons glancing over, their whispers a soft ripple. Maya's pulse raced, but she kept her smile, ready to retreat, when Claire Duval set her wineglass down with a deliberate clink, the sound cutting through the tension like a gunshot. "Charles, that's enough," she said, her voice low but sharp, like a blade sliding from its sheath. The table froze, all eyes on her, the air thick with anticipation. Claire's blue eyes flashed, her posture rigid, her usual poise replaced by something fiercer. "She's doing her job, and she's doing it well. You don't need to humiliate her to make yourself feel important. It's embarrassing." Wentworth blinked, caught off guard, his smirk faltering. "Claire, relax," he said, forcing a laugh, his hand tightening around his fork. "It's just a bit of fun, lighten up." "It's not fun," Claire snapped, her voice rising, drawing more eyes from the room. "It's cruel, Charles, and frankly, I'm tired of watching you act like you're above everyone else. You're not impressing anyone. Not me, not Richard, not John, and certainly not Mr. Kessler." She glanced at the potential partner, whose expression was unreadable but clearly displeased, his fingers drumming lightly on the table. John and Richard shifted uncomfortably, their loyalty wavering, their faces a mix of shock and embarrassment. "She's got a point, Charles," John muttered, avoiding Wentworth's gaze, his usual bravado gone. "Maybe ease up a bit, no need to make a scene." Richard nodded, his voice low. "Yeah, let's just enjoy the meal, okay? We're here for business." Wentworth's face reddened, his smirk replaced by a scowl, his composure cracking like thin ice. "You're all suddenly saints now?" he said, his voice tight, a note of desperation creeping in. "Fine, let's move on. Girl, get me that lamb, and make it quick." Maya nodded, retreating to the kitchen, her heart racing, a spark of triumph mingling with her anger. Claire's defense was unexpected, a crack in Wentworth's armor she hadn't anticipated. It was a small victory, but it shifted the dynamic, exposing Wentworth's vulnerability in front of his peers. She caught Lila's eye as she passed, the manager's nod now carrying a hint of a smile, as if she'd been waiting for this moment. Maya didn't know what Lila was planning, but she sensed something bigger was at play. A reckoning just out of sight. In the kitchen, Chef Marco took the returned lamb, muttering, "This is nonsense. The meat's flawless." Maya barely heard him, her mind buzzing with the scene she'd just witnessed. Claire's stand had changed something, not just for Maya but for the table, the room, the delicate balance of power that Wentworth had taken for granted. She delivered the new lamb dish, her movements deliberate, her smile a quiet defiance. Wentworth accepted it without comment, his eyes avoiding hers, but the tension at the table was palpable, a fracture in the group's once unshakable unity. As she cleared plates from a nearby table, Maya overheard snippets of their conversation. Kessler's clipped responses, John's nervous chuckle, Claire's pointed silence. The potential partner excused himself to take a call, his departure abrupt, his portfolio tucked under his arm. Wentworth's shoulders stiffened, his voice strained as he tried to salvage the mood, but his friends were no longer the eager audience they'd been. Maya allowed herself a moment of satisfaction, but it was fleeting. Wentworth's humiliation was a start, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. The second twist came later that night, as Maya was clearing glasses from the bar, the dining room now quieter, the last tables lingering over dessert. A woman approached, her presence commanding despite her understated attire, a tailored navy blazer, dark jeans, and a silk scarf that hinted at quiet wealth. She was about 45, with sharp features, warm brown eyes, and a smile that felt both familiar and out of place in the glitz of Luxe Bistro. "Maya Torres?" she said, her voice steady, carrying a warmth that cut through the restaurant's artificial sheen. Maya set down her tray, her brow furrowing. "Yes, ma'am?" she said, wiping her hands on her apron. "Can I help you?" The woman extended a hand, her handshake firm but kind. "I'm Elena Carter. You probably don't remember me, but I taught your AP English class at Roosevelt High. You wrote an essay about your mother's journey from Guatemala that still sticks with me. It was one of the best pieces I've ever read from a student." Maya's jaw dropped, memories flooding back like a tide. Miss Carter had been her favorite teacher, the one who'd seen her potential when others dismissed her as just another kid from the barrio, destined for a life of low-wage jobs. She'd encouraged Maya to apply to UCLA, to chase her dreams of journalism, even when Maya doubted herself. "Miss Carter?" Maya said, her voice catching, a mix of disbelief and joy. "What are you doing here?" Elena's smile widened, her eyes glinting with purpose. "I'm a journalist now, investigative reporting for the Los Angeles Times. I've been coming to Luxe Bistro for a story I'm working on, about how the elite treat service workers in places like this. And I was here last week, Maya, when that man Charles Wentworth humiliated you. I saw everything." Maya's stomach twisted, a mix of embarrassment and curiosity tightening her chest. "You saw that?" "Separator. I recorded it," Elena said, her voice steady, a quiet fire in her eyes. "Every word, every sneer, every sweetheart. Lila tipped me off. She's been helping me gather evidence for weeks. She told me you're one of her best, and when I realized it was you, my old student, I knew I had to do something. I want to include your story in my piece, anonymously if you prefer. Men like Wentworth need to be held accountable, Maya, and you deserve to be heard." Maya hesitated, her mind racing. Speaking out could risk her job, her reputation in an industry where customers held all the power. Luxe Bistro relied on patrons like Wentworth, and rocking the boat could leave her unemployed, her dreams of finishing UCLA in jeopardy. But the memory of Wentworth's smirk, his $0 tip, his casual cruelty burned like a brand. And here was Miss Carter, her old teacher, now a force in journalism, a woman who'd believed in her when no one else did, offering her a chance to fight back, to reclaim the dignity he'd tried to steal. "I'm in," Maya said finally, her voice firm, a resolve settling over her like armor. "And don't hide my name. Let them know it's me, Maya Torres." Elena's eyes gleamed with approval, a proud teacher seeing her student rise. "That's the Maya I remember," she said. "I'll make sure this hits hard. Wentworth won't know what's coming." Maya nodded, a spark of hope igniting inside her. She didn't know how Elena's article would play out, but for the first time since that humiliating night, she felt like she had power, a voice that could echo beyond the walls of Luxe Bistro. As she returned to her tables, her steps lighter, she caught Lila's eye. The manager's nod was subtle, but it carried a weight, a shared secret that something big was coming. The reckoning arrived 5 days later, when Elena's article dropped in the Los Angeles Times. Titled "Power and Pride: How the Elite Treat Those Who Serve Them," it was a scathing exposé of the toxic culture in Beverly Hills' high-end dining scene, a world where wealth was a license to dehumanize. Charles Wentworth was the centerpiece, his behavior laid bare through Elena's recordings. His sweetheart taunts, his spilled wine, his refusal to tip on an $820 bill, his mocking dismissal of Maya as a girl who'd never seen a decent meal. Though unnamed in the article, the details, Patek Philippe watch, Bentley, real estate mogul, left no doubt who he was among those in the know. The piece quoted Maya by name, her story a powerful thread woven through statistics, interviews with other service workers, and a searing analysis of class dynamics. The fallout was swift and brutal, a tidal wave that swept through Wentworth's carefully constructed world. On Reddit, where Maya had reposted her story as "Server Life Sucks," the article went viral, racking up thousands of upvotes and comments within hours. "This guy's the worst kind of rich jerk," one user wrote, their post garnering hundreds of replies. "Maya's a hero for speaking out." Another shared a similar story. "I had a customer like this in Vegas, no tip on a $500 tab, and called me boy the whole night." Twitter exploded with respect service workers, users sharing their own tales of entitled customers, the hashtag trending nationally by midday. A meme of a Bentley with the caption, "When you're too rich to tip but not too rich to be a jerk," circulated widely, a biting jab at Wentworth's expense. In Beverly Hills, the repercussions were more personal, more devastating. Mr. Kessler, the potential partner for Wentworth's real estate deal, pulled out within 24 hours of the article's publication, citing reputational concerns in a curt email that Wentworth read and reread, his hands trembling. The deal, a $50 million redevelopment of a downtown LA block, had been his ticket to cementing his legacy, and its collapse was a public humiliation. Kessler's withdrawal sent ripples through the industry, with other investors quietly distancing themselves, wary of associating with a man now synonymous with arrogance. Claire Duval, emboldened by her stand at the restaurant, took the betrayal further. She'd been growing disillusioned with Wentworth for months, tired of his bullying and his shady business tactics, backroom deals, pressure on smaller competitors, whispers of tax evasion. The article was her breaking point. She penned an open letter to a local business journal, published 2 days after Elena's piece, calling Wentworth a bully whose arrogance has finally caught up with him. The letter detailed his pattern of mistreating not just service workers, but colleagues, contractors, and even friends, accusing him of using his wealth to intimidate and manipulate. "I regret standing by for so long," she wrote. His behavior at Luxe Bistro was the last straw. It's time for accountability. The letter went viral, shared across LinkedIn and Twitter, its raw honesty striking a chord with a city fed up with unchecked privilege. John Maxwell and Richard Klein, once Wentworth's loyal cheerleaders, followed Claire's lead, their loyalty evaporating as his name became toxic. John withdrew from a joint venture, a luxury condo project in Santa Monica, citing diverging priorities. Richard, more bluntly, told a mutual colleague he was done with Charles's drama. His decision fueled by both the article and Claire's letter. The social clubs Wentworth had once lorded over, exclusive haunts like the Beverly Hills Country Club and the Jonathan Club, revoked his invitations, their members wary of associating with a pariah. Whispers spread through the city's elite circles, painting Wentworth as a cautionary tale. A man who'd flown too close to the sun and burned his wings. Maya watched it unfold from her tiny apartment in East LA, her phone buzzing with notifications as the Reddit thread exploded and strangers sent messages of support. "You're a badass, Maya," one user wrote. "Thank you for standing up." Another, a server from Chicago, Venmo'd her $20 with a note, "For the tip that jerk didn't leave." The outpouring was overwhelming, a reminder that her story had touched a nerve, resonating with countless others who'd felt the sting of being dismissed, dehumanized, erased. She cried reading the messages, not out of sadness but out of a strange, powerful gratitude for Elena, for Claire, for the strangers who saw her. Lila called the next day, her voice brimming with pride. "You started something, Maya," she said. "The owners are freaking out, but they're implementing a new policy. Any customer who verbally abuses staff gets banned. No exceptions. Wentworth's blacklisted, by the way. You did that." Lila paused, her tone softening. "I knew you had it in you. I've been watching you since you started here. Tough as nails, but with a heart bigger than this whole city." Maya laughed, wiping her eyes. "Thanks, Lila. I didn't expect any of this." "You should've," Lila said. "You're not just a server, Maya. You're a force. Don't forget it." A week later, Maya was back at Luxe Bistro, serving a table of tech entrepreneurs who tipped generously and thanked her by name. She was clearing glasses from the bar when she spotted Wentworth at a corner table, alone. His shoulders slumped, his Patek Philippe nowhere in sight. He looked smaller, diminished, his tailored suit hanging loosely, as if his confidence had been stripped away with his reputation. He ordered a scotch, his voice quiet, and when a new server, a young man named Diego, brought it, Wentworth left a $100 tip, a silent, belated attempt at redemption. Maya caught his eye as he left, his gaze heavy with something, regret perhaps, or shame, but she didn't smile. She felt no triumph, only a quiet pity. Wentworth had lost everything, not because of her, but because of himself. His arrogance, a trap he'd built with his own hands. Elena reached out a few days later, her voice warm over the phone. "The article's up for a journalism award," she said, a smile in her tone. "But more importantly, I want you to come work with me. An internship at the Times, part-time so you can finish UCLA. You've got a voice, Maya, and a story to tell. Let's see what you can do with it." Maya accepted, her heart swelling with possibility, a dream she'd buried under years of struggle suddenly within reach. She started a blog chronicling the unseen lives of service workers, their resilience, their quiet victories, their humanity. Her posts, raw and honest, drew thousands of readers, and publishers began to take notice, whispering about book deals, a chance to turn her story into something permanent. As she stood behind the bar at Luxe Bistro, pouring a glass of Chardonnay for a smiling couple, Maya felt a shift inside her, a tectonic realignment of who she was and who she could be. The dining room glittered around her, its chandeliers and velvet chairs a world she'd once felt alien in. But now she belonged, not because of wealth or status, but because of her own light, forged in resilience, kindled by justice, amplified by the voices that had rallied around her. She was no longer just a server, a girl from East LA scraping by. She was Maya Torres, a woman with a story, a purpose, a power she'd only begun to tap. Outside, the city pulsed with life, its lights a constellation of dreams and struggles. The waves of change Maya had sparked were spreading, carried by a hashtag, a letter, a story that refused to be silenced. And as she smiled at the couple, her hands steady, her heart full, she knew this was only the beginning.